America. All right. Anyway, we messed up something for everybody else, I guess. Now, anyway, financial troubles are also going to be a big, big problem. This is where we get into the financial situation. Financial issues, third cause, right? Caused by a concept called deficit spending from the higher governments, right? When a government spends more money than it makes, it goes into a deficit, right? This is something that happens with a lot of governments these days, period, but it's because everybody owes everybody money at this point, but it's, man, whatever. National debt is also going to soar because of wars like helping the American Revolution, which is going to force the government to borrow money. Now, to circumvent this borrowing of money, they believe we'll just tax the third estate more. That'll work. Now, the irony is that you would think if the French government financed the American Revolution, they would see how tax law would impact their own country. But they're really dumb, and rich people don't like to pay much of their money out. I guess it happens, you know. Now, also the last one, which I actually find kind of be just funny in a way, just because it's like, what else could be so wrong? You ever actually sat there and been like, oh man, how could this situation get any worse? And then it starts raining? Well, bad harvests are going to make everything even worse. Food costs are going to skyrocket and left the poor with even less money to pay their taxes with. And a lot of this had to do with natural disasters. Big, like rainstorms, hailstorms apparently popped up, like tornadoes and hurricanes and all this other crap for 2 years destroyed crops in France. So now your rural peasants don't have any money to buy food with, and they have to pay taxes. Your bourgeoisie doesn't have any money to buy food with, but they still have to pay taxes. So it's a big, big problem. And the first and second estate in this still refuse to pay their taxes, okay? So this is all our financial stuff. Let's keep going. Now, going back to the bad leaders part, France is going to also make things worse when they refuse to listen to the complaints of the third estate. So Louis XVI, to try and keep the revolution from happening, came up with this idea. He calls the Estates General. The Estates General is the French version of the Parliament. Write that down real quick. The French version of the Parliament is the Estates General, all right? The Estates General is the French version of the what now? The Parliament. And the Parliament is the English version of the what? The Congress. It's just their legislative body, all right? And in that legislative body, every house, because theirs is tricameral, is given one vote. And it's one vote for the first estate, one vote for the second estate, one vote for the third estate. Ugh! So this is pissing off everybody because it's not like the first and second estate are going to vote themselves into paying taxes. So what Louis XVI decides to do is like, look, make a notebook called a cahier, which is a C-A-H-I-E-R-S, and fill it with complaints, and I'll read them, and at the next Estates General meeting, we'll vote on these referendums. And so the first estate was like, I think we need more Eucharist or something, I don't know. And then the second estate was just like, derp, 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 I don't care, and there's a little squiggly drawing of my coat of arms, because they're nobility. The third estate literally just took up every page with taxes, 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 taxes. But here's the messed up part. Guess how many of them Louis read? 0. He didn't read a single one of them. Now, this is going to be getting worse and worse. Underneath the financial troubles like sector, the third estate begins to come up with goals for their revolution. They begin to threaten a revolution. They're like, look, if you don't give us fair tax laws, we're going to come at you and we're going to start this revolution right here, right now. We will arm the poor. And there's nothing worse than arming the poor because they want simple solutions and they're prone to violence. All right. So anyway, the third estate banded together and at the Estates General and began to say, we are a divided group because we have 3 classes within our estate. So we're going to give ourselves a new name. Much like the Sons of Liberty in America, they called themselves the National Assembly or the National Convention. Okay. So they called themselves the National Assembly and they began to demand fair rights. So they were like, this is your warning. We are now a group. We will now work together to try and reform French law. Fix it or else. Any of y'all got siblings? Who's got an older sibling? Raise your hand if you got an older sibling. I know Claire, I know you do. Lankowski, I know you do. I see a couple other ones. Yeah. You ever locked your sibling out of the house? It's hilarious, isn't it? Like, so my brother used to do that to me all the time, but I used to do it to him during the winter time, so it was way funnier. All right, so... But there's nothing worse than that. It's very immature, and it's not how adults act. Don't do that anymore. Even though the irony is how it's led to a revolution, right? So anyway, the tennis court oath, major event. This is considered the start of the revolution. This right here is the laying of the groundwork for the revolution. This is like the thing that started it, okay? The tennis court oath happened, listen closely and write this down, because Louis XVI called another Estates General meeting after the complaints and stuff, and after the forming of the National Assembly. And the National Assembly formed themselves into, like, we want fair voting rights because we keep being beaten 2-1 every time we vote for anything. We should get more votes based on our population. And so Louis says, okay, come in. We'll call another meeting, a States General meeting. And you guys can talk about that. They then, on the way in, right as they arrived, Louis and the First and Second Estate members locked them out of the Estates General. Real grown up there, guy. And they were literally, apparently, in 1791, I believe it is, I'll have to look that up, sitting on the other side of a door, giggling, while the National Assembly tried to get in. So the National Assembly was like, okay, you want to play this game? Fine. And so they went to this indoor tennis court right here, and they pledged an oath to each other that they would not disband until their demands were met. The revolution started here. It started with the tennis court oath because they got locked out of a room, and they were really upset about it. So they met together with a couple of select members of the First Estate right here. That's a priest that was loyal to the National Assembly and a noble that was loyal to the National Assembly. A lot of people think the only reason that they jumped on board at the last minute, a couple of these people. Now, keep in mind, most of their estates were on the other side with the help of the royals. But these two were like, yeah, these people are pissed, and they're going to set some stuff on fire. It's going to get bad. The tennis court oath was considered the start of the revolution. Following this was the first violent act of the revolution. It was when the Parisians stormed the Bastille. Raise your hand if you heard of this. Yeah, I see some of you. I know some of you have heard this before. If any of you have ever seen The Dark Knight Rises, you've seen this in action, okay? So, the Parisians stormed the Bastille because rumors began to swarm all over Paris that troops were going to arrest any National Assembly member that they could find. Because Louis knew that things were going to get better or worse long before they ever got better. So 800 members of the National Assembly formed up out front of this thing called the Bastille, right? Now, the Bastille was an old medieval fort, okay? It used to be a fort. It had been converted into a prison. But the thing about the Bastille was it wasn't so much like, it was a symbol of oppression, okay? That's what it was. It was the symbol of the old way. It was the symbol of feudalism. It's a medieval fort. It was a symbol of what was wrong with France. This giant ironclad or stone-clad building that was full of prisoners and weapons. So, the National Assembly decided to storm the Bastille, looking for weapons, and their plan was to release prisoners and burn it to the ground. So this is considered the beginning of the revolution. This happened on July 14th. Yeah, nice job. You couldn't have waited until like August, been original. Anyway, so, not like July 4th. I mean, July 4th is way better. So anyway, they stormed the Bastille, though. Fun couple facts, though. So when they showed up outside of the Bastille, there were only 2 guards there. And they both came outside and they were like, look, we need everybody to calm down. I can't let you inside. I could lose my job. And then the 800 members of the National Assembly said, well, you're going to need to get out of the way. We're going to kill you. And they said, we're going to not get out of the way. And so that mob of 800 people killed those 2 guards and then put their heads on sticks and then ran into the Bastille looking for weapons. And then when they got in there, they were looking for weapons and they were like, we can't find any! And because there was no weapons in there because they had actually moved all the prisoners out because they thought that this could happen. And so they couldn't find any weapons, so they were like, all right, fine, we're going to let all the prisoners go. And so it turns out that there were only 7 prisoners in there, and 4 of them were mentally incompetent. So when they let them go in the basement, they kind of just walked around in circles, just making noises and mumbling a lot. And so they got really upset, and they got the prisoners out, and then they set the place on fire. And that is considered the beginning of the revolution. As you can see right here, this is the Parisians, the National Assembly members storming the Bastille. They showed up with cannons, they started blowing holes in the walls, and burnt it to the ground. Because it was a giant symbol of feudalism. It was a giant symbol of everything that's wrong with the French government. And now, every year on July 14th, they celebrate it with Bastille Day. All right? We can also celebrate it in Philly. This year, July 14th, I highly recommend that you guys go to Eastern State Penitentiary, which is like our version of a Bastille. And so when they stormed the Bastille, though, that day, following that, every year for Bastille Day, they would throw bread to crowds. And they'd be like, here's the bread, yeah, revolution, what's up, bread for the people. And we do the same thing in Philly, though, but apparently we throw tasty cakes to the crowd. So Bastille Day is very, very cool. And as you can see, it's a huge holiday for them, but it's the start of their revolution. So the big things that we learned from today are the 3 causes of the revolution are, boom, bad leaders, boom, death of feudalism, boom, financial troubles, right? Mainly tax law, all right? So then we know that the 2 big events in the beginning of the revolution were the forming of the National Assembly / the tennis court oath, and then the storming of the Bastille, all right? So now starting tomorrow, not tomorrow, Monday, can't wait to see you guys, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the violence and the extremism of the French Revolution. So I love teaching the French Revolution, so I hope you guys are in for it, all right? But I'll see y'all tomorrow. Not tomorrow. I'll see y'all on Monday, Camden Catholic. Enjoy the rest of your spring break. Can't wait to see you guys. Have a good one.